inflammatory.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Not just in football. And I think Raheem should have widened it to not just talk about the perception that we have over footballers, just as that article portrays, but also generally speaking, when we hear about Muslim terrorists and Nigerian conmen and Yardie drug gangs and Muslim grooming and pedophile gangs, whereby there are many more white pedophiles, white drug dealers than there are of the other group of people. But we don't hear we don't talk about that. Now, what that does, it is not targeting or it's not painting a negative image of drug dealers or a negative image of pedophiles. It's portraying a negative image of Muslims or of Nigerians or of Yardies. And it is a very subliminal, subtle way of indoctrination, because I have an argument with and I've had it for many, many years, as to whether the media influences society or it's a reflection on society. And more often than not, it influences society. Something which you may think is completely unrelated is Brexit, because we have been influenced, not just the people who voted Leave, but the people who voted Remain, based on the rhetoric that we heard, which influenced us one way or the other. So we are definitely influenced by what we actually see. So when Raheem talks about, which is very, very good, because, and we can't just label it to football, because racism is a problem in society, and we can't compartmentalize it to say it's in the police or it's in football, because it absolves the rest of society in terms of looking at itself to then say, how culpable are we in being part of this? And we all are.
Do you think then it's something that's getting worse?
It's not getting worse, but because we didn't hear it, we thought it was getting better.
Right.
Now, in football, what football can do is they can say, if there are any racist chanting, we're going to kick you out to the ground. So for any unconsciously racist football fans, all you have to do is keep your mouth shut. That doesn't mean it's getting any better. But of course, in times of confrontation that you saw with Raheem, people show their true colors. And people say, so you can't tell me those 3 people who actually were racially abusing him. There would have been hundreds who probably would have felt like saying the same thing, but they didn't. So does that then mean it doesn't exist? So until we start to tackle it holistically, looking at how to get rid of racism, and the only way we can do that is to tackle the cause, not the symptom. And that incident is the symptom of it, as is we've seen symptoms from Luis Suarez, John Terry. We've seen so many symptoms. And very much like a disease, you have to tackle the cause of racism, not the symptoms. And all we're doing is tackling the symptoms.
So going back to the time where bananas were thrown on the pitch when you were playing football, do you think that even though football maybe has tidied up its image a little bit, society still has those same sort of issues to wrestle with?
Well, before we are members of any football fraternity, we're members of society, so we're doing it the wrong way around. You can't look at football, because for football, for 90 minutes on a Saturday, or obviously football is played at different times now, you can't just say because for the 90 minutes we don't see it anymore means it doesn't exist in society. It is prevalent in society as you go into the inner cities and see how disenfranchised and how lack of opportunities are there for members of ethnic minorities. So why should football be any different?
We've heard, because of what happened to Raheem, Robbie Earle and Jason Roberts both saying that they feel like they've failed Raheem Sterling. What are your thoughts on that?
First of all, they haven't failed Raheem Sterling because there's nothing they can do to change it. Society has to change. They can't change society. Society has to change. And the only way we can do that is, and I always say this, for every Raheem Sterling, John Barnes, who may talk about how we were racially abused, for every Stormzy who says that singers won't get Grammys, and for every Idris Elba or black actors who say we're not getting Oscars, what about the average black person in the street? And until we change the perception of the average black person in the street, there will always be the opportunities for the so-called superstar black celebrities to get an Oscar and to get a manager's job and to get a, but that won't change. The only way we can change racism is if we change the perception of the average black person in the street, and then you will have many more average black people being given what they deserve.
So in terms of those newspaper headlines and those stories that Raheem Sterling was specifically talking about, you talk about changing society. What can the newspaper industry, and not just the newspaper industry, but the media in general, what sort of things would you like to see in terms of the changing of those narratives? And is that a long-term process, or can that change?
It's a very long-term process. We talk about hundreds of years of indoctrination in ensuring that there are certain groups of people who are more worthy than others. I'll give you an example. I don't really want to talk about this particular person in a bad light, or it's obviously on a different channel, but this is just the principle, Piers Morgan. And I don't know Piers, and I'm sure he's a very, very nice man. But the character of Piers can only be for a white middle-class man who will be successful on television. If it was a woman with Piers' character, that would not be acceptable. Or if it was a black man, it would not be acceptable. Because people may say he's belligerent, people may say that he's condescending, but he's accepted because he's a white middle class. Now, it's going to take a long time to change perceptions of different groups of people, but we know the group of the group who is completely accepted no matter what happens. We know who that is. And Discrimination affects women, it affects ethnic minorities because it's a perception of that person's capabilities. Now, for a woman to lead, for a black person to think, for a homosexual to fight in a war, these perceptions or misconceptions we've had over hundreds of years. And we can't change it by just all of a sudden coming together and saying, you know what you've learned and what has been instilled in you for hundreds of years? That's wrong because we're all equal. It's not as simple as that.
Can I ask you a question, and I accept this from a white man asking a black man this question. When you get asked questions about something completely different, does that thought which you've articulated so well, does that underlie everything you think? Because you feel that there is a sort of a system which is sort of almost fighting against you in some ways.
In many respects, I'm not talking about me personally.
No, but
no, but this is the point I'm making. Because John Barnes is fine, and so is Beyonce, and so is Obama, and so is black people in the higher echelons of society. But I'm talking about, and I understand what black people go through. So when people talk about, oh, isn't that terrible what happened to Raheem Sterling? I cannot believe that this is happening this day and age. You speak to black people in the cities and they say, this is what we go through every day. It's not a surprise to us. So when people are talking about, we thought this already gone away, because it doesn't affect you. So very much when, even from a black perspective, we're talking about discrimination. We're talking about it from a black perspective. But women go through discrimination. They're talking about it from a female perspective. LGBT, homosexuals, it's all discrimination based on the misconception we have of those particular groups. And what I'm talking about is looking at it holistically rather than just saying, oh, it's a problem in football, it's a problem for women in business, it's a problem for homosexuals in the army. It is a problem of changing perceptions, and those perceptions are fueled by...
We see cases of abandonment in which the father, the mother just run away, and then the child is just left there, 6-year-old child just there living with nobody. Although they all come from Cameroon, but they don't know her, she doesn't know them, she just forced to live with them. So you see so many children being vulnerable in the camps. We try as much as possible to take care of both refugees and nationals as well. I see the intervention of MSF in Cross River as timely, in the sense that prior to MSF...
Good morning, back again. Pain management, climatizing to the pain. Hence why I'll continue going to the gym. I'm in so much agony at this point in time. In my feet, in my ankle, and in my knees. Can't really walk properly and my spine hurts. However, if I can get through this, I actually improve my pain threshold. And that's how I managed to recover in regards to my knee and the gap to my toe. Thank you for listening. 37 to Cameroon. It's one of my targets.
Always put off because they think that they're going past their post.
Yeah, or no funding because the name of your organisation does not fit in with what the government says.
Who have you been told that by?
The children are being told
So
by the schools. The schools are telling the children that this is what is happening. They can't talk in school. They can't do this in school. So how are they supposed to learn? Learning is about engaging, talking. So if you're telling me something that you want me to learn, I have the right to question if I'm not understanding. You can't teach just by being a teacher and just talking. Supposing it's not every 1 in 10 pupils will understand what is being taught.
Yeah.
But what about the ones that don't understand? And those are the ones that are going to be failed in society in general and as a whole. And that's what we want to work to eradicate, put a stop to, and let them know that they can do what people who are from better backgrounds
can do. Stopping silence in corridors, that's been eaten away at my head. Schools, like free schools and academies, have this new thing. While you're walking from one lesson to the other, silence.
When you're leaving school at the end of the school day, if you're talking, you get a detention at the end of the school day.
Can you tell me a bit about the event you've just been to?
100 Black Men of London
it's, I don't know, it's
Inspiring.
empowering as well for parents to know. I could
Have you
take
gone to it because there are no options available
I
within the
prefer
school?
to it
There is
because-
options. There was options because before I started this, I actually applied for early help intervention, early help year help for my son because he seemed to be going the wrong way. And rather than have the council or the government find someone for him, I wanted him to relate to people who look like him.
So the mentors are like young black entrepreneurs, young men who've gone through university. I'd rather my son relate to that
People
than
who
somebody.
have been rehabilitated, who were troublemakers and have been rehabilitated and are now
Great.
great for society. You know?
And they're good role models for kids.
Perfect.
It is not a situation where we are trying to carve out ourselves a boundary and to leave a country where we got independence as a unit. We came into that union with our own internationally defined borders. The borders of southern Cameroon are not being made now. They are borders defined by international treaties. That is different from what Biafra tried to do in Nigeria. The country that has seceded from the Union is the Cameroon, which has seceded. They declared their secession on February 4, 1984. It is they who have seceded. And we say you must follow your secession to the logical conclusion by pulling out of Amazonia.
On the 7th of June this year, The Guardian newspaper ran a special feature on the brutal campaign of violence by the regime of Cameroon's President Biya against English-speaking communities in the west of the country, which were formerly known as British Cameroon, communities to whom we owe a historic responsibility. They quoted in The Guardian the ordinary men and women who saw their villages attacked by Biya's military, who saw their neighbours and families members killed, and that they were forced to flee for their lives. They quoted the charity workers who were looking after thousands of displaced women and children for whom they warned going home would be suicide. Now, by any normal moral standard, you would expect the UK government to read those reports and be appalled. But not this government. The very next day after that report was published, the British Trade Secretary announced a £1.5 billion deal with a British national gas company and President Biya's regime. A deal which, in the words of the Trade Department's press release, will, quote, generate a huge stream of revenue for Cameroon's public treasury. In other words, we have a regime ranked as the 25th most corrupt in the world, a ruler in his 43rd year of autocratic power, with a personal wealth of over $200 million, engaged in a systematic campaign of brutality and killings against English-speaking community in his country, and all the government can do is boast of doing trade deals which will only enrich him further. That, in my mind, is what this government means by global Britain.
spot the signs of neglect. Appearance. Behavior. Communication. Think appearance, behavior, communication. Child abuse. If you think it, report it.
Bringing it to light, that's what we think our survey should be all about. Bringing it to light and how it can be corrected or solved. Instead of focusing on substantiating their stereotype.
Yeah,
Our survey should
you're
be all
looking
about.
for, we're seeking the truth, so we're trying to help ourselves here. Yeah, so we're trying to create everything's factual. Yeah, but what you don't want for it to be watered down or taken out of this space and taken out of context and then used as a diplomacy tool or a tool to get money or, you know, we know what these people are like, because there are a lot of things that culturally are done in a lot of different, you know, I guess, ethnicities and cultures that are not understood by other people. So whatever we find in different, in our findings here, people may not understand as to why people think this might be something that they should do or they should take. Do you know what I mean? Because in situations of, you know, cultural or traditional things, there is a tendency for people to think that this is what happens. So therefore, who am I to kind of now say that this is something that's wrong? Do you know what I mean? Until sometimes you bring it into the light or they step into another arena, they don't realise that this is not what happens to everybody. Yeah. And this can happen in the way of domestic violence. People think that this may be the way that they should be treated because this is what you do when you get into a relationship. Yes, when you get into a relationship with somebody. So whether it is on the side of, I don't know, we have to find the names that we're going to use for people to be happy within this space, but for people that are, you know, maybe, you know, causing harm to others and people that are in the way of being harmed. People need to know that what's happening to them is not the right way to behave or to even to live.
Yeah,
just to live.
Wrong is wrong.
Yes.
Wrong should be called wrong instead of calling it culture. Because when you call it culture, you allow it to go on. But what is wrong, regardless of the culture.
But then how do we ascertain that it's wrong if people think within that particular culture that have grown up in that space, area, country, whatever it is, belief system, yeah, they may not know, they may feel upset by it. Even the person that's abusing may feel upset by it, but maybe they feel that that's their role. Maybe they feel that I need to take control here and this is how I do it. Maybe they've grown up in a family environment that this was the norm. Do you see what I'm saying? And a lot of people have that and they don't realise that this is harmful to other people.
Okay. We should stop associating it to culture.
That's what I think.
Wrong, it's not culture.
We're talking about another subject right now. We're talking about wrong and right, you know, which is a different subject to domestic violence policies and laws and legislation.
Yes.
You know, these are two different subjects. Wrong and right, it's more probably, let's say, it can be, you know, let's say, geopolitical. You know, so depending, you know, how you grow up, your religion, your background, where you come from, you know, you could be African, but, you know, maybe South African and Nigerian, you know, they may, you know, see right and wrong differently.
Yes.
But that's another issue, I would say, rather than, you know, the policy we hear about researching, you know, we need to clarify, you know, what the research is, that's one thing. But also I would say, I would like to use law legislation.
Right.
All right, because law here, you know, when we're talking about domestic violence, you know, domestic violence, there are laws for domestic violence.
Yes.
Of course.
All right, there are laws in this country. Let's just stick into this country, in the United Kingdom. There are laws for domestic violence. But unfortunately, even those laws are unlawful. Right? They might be legal. They might be legal.
Okay, let me hear. I need to know you. I need you to expand upon this.
They might be legal according to them, but they are unlawful. In a sense, we need to then research that, study that together.
You can't say they are unlawful. If something is law, it's law. But you say that it might not be right, but you cannot say it's unlawful because it's law already.
If it's, legislation,
it's unlawful.
It's legislation.
Yeah, it's legislation. It's the law that made it the law. People came together and made it the law. I'm not saying it's right, but you could say it's wrong. That is why we have judicial reviews to look at any new law, any new legislation, to check it and know whether it's right or wrong. But it is law. A law cannot be unlawful. You can say it's wrong.
I would say
anything unlawful, then it's wrong.
There is a difference. There's a difference between legal and unlawful. There's a thin line between legal.
Yeah, when you do anything contrary to that state law, that state, defined law, is unlawful. Am I wrong?
All right. But what
so
I'm trying to say
you want to say that it's wrong, that it shouldn't have been enacted already.
Yes, that's what I understand.
What I'm trying to say is this. What I'm trying to say is that even the law that is legal,
it shouldn't have been
into the domestic, you know, the law that is actual, that has been maybe for years. It's not right. It's not just. It's not just.
It's not just. Yeah,
it's not just. It's unequal.
Yeah. Yes.
It's unequal. It's not right, and it's unjust.
Yeah.
So therefore, you know.
Yeah, I know. So then you had to clarify it now because that's what you were talking about.
Directly unlawful.
Yeah, I can say something is wrong, but
unlawful if it's legislation, if it's
it might be legal. It's legal.
Yes. There's many things in the world that are legal. Yeah, there's many things that are legal in this world. You know, the world over, not just in the UK, but it's unlawful.
Right.
The practices of what people are doing is not right.
So that's why we have to study those laws of domestic violence to understand them, to really, you know, male and female, to really understand them and see what's right, what's wrong. Study them properly, find out what's right, what's wrong. Then we can come as a group and say, oh, look at your laws. You know, these are our foundings. Not male findings, not female findings. This is our findings as African people. This is our findings.
But that's why you have this survey we are doing. Because we are going out, it's not about what we think here. We are going out to find out what the majority of the people we do in our community thinks. It's not about you. It's not about us here. That's what the survey is all about.
But this is what I'm saying. I'm not talking necessarily directly as us. I'm talking as Africans.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Africans, male and female.
But that's where the culture comes in now.
Yes.
And that's where I tend to disagree with you, because when you talk about it, some people will feel, and that's where you might look at the survey we do and people will see it's a culture change, because when people begin to say what is wrong is a culture change, you begin to allow it as the norm between certain people.
Yes.
No, I mean, me, I don't see the laws as a culture thing. The laws in itself.
But you use the word as Africans.
No, what I'm saying is that we are here as a group, as brothers and sisters, as Africans. The law, it's against not individuals, not male and female necessarily, but it's against Africans. All right, the people, our people.
Is it in terms of domestic violence? Because that's what we're
I mean, specifically, yeah, let alone the whole lot. The whole
lot of laws are against
whatever.
In terms of domestic violence.
We are talking about domestic violence more specifically.
But there are a lot of, we can go to the legislation which you brought up quite a few times, but within the cultural aspect of a belief system of traditions and things that you are supposed to do within a relationship, whether it be a male and female in a relationship of like wife and husband, or whether it is in a household, you know, when you're growing up. Violence that you see within these walls may be a cultural thing, and these things are where you start, because this is, a lot of people think that these things are normal to happen inside of the household. So when you now take it to the legislation, they can only help you to a point, because you can only be helped to the point that you will allow somebody to help you. So, if, for instance, you are in a situation, there are some cultures that believe that it's okay for men to hit their women. There are. Yeah? Well, I'm not going to... Yes, some cultures and some religions, yeah, believe that. So, now that person, the person that's been abused, goes out into a new environment, which is the UK here, and they go and talk about it to somebody that is not from their community or upbringing.
That is right.
Yes, so then where they've come from is a wrong situation. There's no two ways about it, it's just wrong. Yeah, people shouldn't be allowed to do that. But they go and speak to someone that doesn't know their culture, and then it is looked upon as if that person is, and we've been looked upon like this for a while, that we are savages, or we are, you know, more than we are because of our gesticulations. We talk with big hands. We, you know, the way that we are as, you know, African people, we articulate different. When they go and speak to somebody that doesn't know that, we've seen many cases of practices that we do as African people being misconstrued. But in this case, they go and speak to someone now, and then the whole family is blown apart. This is the worry that they have, that they come out into society which is not their natural born society, and they speak of it, and then people now start to look into their life and start to pull away, you know, the whole family setup. But that's not what they need. They don't need for, sometimes people need to be taken away from the situation. If, you know, nobody it should be in a situation where they're being beaten or beaten up, right? Or even if it's a mental or whatever controlling environment. But the thing is, the right help needs to be found for African people that understand what we are about and the cultural aspect. Because when we were speaking with another person in our organisation, that is the psychologist that works with us, she was saying, when in the psychology sector of the UK, or Britain, should I say, you have a natural bias. A lot of people have a natural bias of how they view people when they walk in. So if you come in for a consultancy, two people come in for marriage guidance, and maybe they're having a bit of physical activity, beating each other or whatever. A person that is not from that particular tradition, culture, will look upon us as if we are different, because that's not what they know. They don't know it, you know, and I'm not saying that it's right, but I'm saying there's not enough people out there that come from our, you know, cultural backgrounds working within these fields. So when you are now taken to social services, nobody takes into account your cultural circles, because they don't know it. So you're now going to somebody that's British, and you stand in front of them and you say, oh, this is what we do, and this is, and you know, I got into this marriage, and you know, this is how we normally are with one another, but I want him to stop. You know, maybe he doesn't realise that this isn't how he should behave. You know, and it's not a view that they will understand.
I feel, you know, each time you talk about culture,
yeah,
maybe I'm misunderstanding you and talk about, it's like, it is maybe our culture, a black thing,
yes,
to be violent towards a partner or something.
No.
And
I mean, so
for me, it's a universal wrong.
Yeah, I think
it should not be associated with any culture.
No, I think it's wrong.
You know what I mean?
But it doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
Because it does happen, but it's not a thing of ours. It's a thing that, out of ignorance, any culture, any color has done it in the past. But who has started living it first? That's what matters. Maybe we are late at catching up to say this is wrong. And why that happens in our communities, in our culture, maybe as black people, that we tend more to sweep something under the carpet. We don't discuss things.
Yeah, or stigma.
If you are getting married, you are told whatever your husband do, don't let anybody know, keep it within yourself. That's the advice you get even from your parents. And that is wrong. And people have died over that. So that, because if you never discuss anything, you can never begin to solve the problem. And that is why it has remained so long with us that somebody could be dying in silence. That we, maybe you could get more of us that this happens. It doesn't mean it doesn't happen with other societies. It does. Other races, it does. When you find there are even other races that are worse than us in this, but as long as they keep things to themselves, that's the thing. You need to discuss it, and this is what I'm going through for it to be sorted out. A woman, whoever is the victim, it can be anybody, it can be the man, it can be the woman, becomes a victim for as long as they keep things to themselves. The day you begin to solve your problem is when if you were in a violent marriage for 10 years, you kept quiet for 10 years. That's why it happened for 10 years. But if you, say this is my problem, this is what I'm going through, that's the only way you can begin to be helped. So it's not about being anybody's culture, it's just wrong.
But what about if you don't realise that that's not what you're supposed to be taking?
What is it?
What if you don't realise, if you're an abused person, what if you don't realise what you think that's normal?
Because why
until you come to
that situation and you don't realise it, that means you grew up in that situation.
That's my whole point here.
You've never been.
No, but that's my whole point here. So then you come to a place like this, and we know it's wrong. It's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong. But when you come to an environment like this, where you can get help, we need people that understand more so what we're coming from, not just using their broad blanket approach to everything that they, social services, solve a problem doing. The way that they do it needs to be understanding of various different cultures, and that is the problem that I have.
Is it to walk along with you, or because
it's really,
black or white?
I think it's any time you're going to go into an environment where somebody has just studied a qualification, look in a book and go, okay, so this person, blah, 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 and this is what happens, this is why I don't want them to understand that you should get beaten, no. I don't want them to understand, okay, so you're black, you should, no. I'm talking about they need to be more culturally aware that people come from a certain place and how they should be dealing with the situation to help them out of it. You don't just burst into the person's house and then put them back and address the person or take the man away or whatever it is. You need to look at the situation and you need to try to help them to get out of it in a way that is useful for that particular setup. And I don't like that people take a blanket approach to everything because it is not effective. I've been through this situation, and the thing that it wasn't any cultural situation because I've grown up in this country, but when I had finally gone to the police station and reported it because I never took it that far before, 6 months down the line, I've gone to counselling and they're asking me because he appealed, and asking me to come back in court to stand right in front of him again. After I won the case, and I told my part, whatever went on with him, but that's what happened. They want me to come back and face him again. And I was just like, dude, I've kind of moved my life on, I've healed myself a bit, and now I'm going to look at whatever you call a perpetrator and look at him again and recount my story. For somebody to also just rip me to shreds when they could have done that 6 months ago, just ask me the same questions again, but now what they want to do is they want to bring it back up again, and me as the person, the victim, has to now rehash the whole series of events again, like I'm on trial.
But that's balancing the situation.
Okay.
But the situation was balanced. The situation was balanced. But the situation was balanced when we first went to court.
Sorry, ladies.
When we first went to court.
I heard you ladies. I both heard you ladies, and I respect. This is why it needs to be discussed.
Yeah.
All right, and on a deeper level like that. I get your point. I get your point. But we have to go much deeper than that. And I stopped there because you're touching a very key point right now. Touching the legal side, the court.
I don't think they helped me.
All right. I like what you're saying as well. All right. They didn't help you, no, both of you. All right. So that's what I'm trying to say is the law, right? And the structure, the system, the institution, how it's been established, that is not right in the first place, right? So it's not about the culture, it's not about white, yellow, black, white, whatever. Obviously there are classes, you know, we are right at the bottom for a reason, all right? But we as a people, as African people, we need to understand that reason, why we are at the bottom, why, you know, it's not individually, but it's the whole African family that has been struggling, that has been put at the bottom, you know, why, not individual, not just me, but the whole African people is being targeted and is being unlawfully, all right? So we need to understand that it's the law and the structure, the system, the legal system, and the political system, the capitalist, the racist system that is in place in itself.
I believe you, and I think they're gunning for this situation because with the black man, for me, I feel that they have that agenda to exploit and to stop that person from living a great life. I believe that, I've seen it firsthand. But in this situation, I felt like I didn't have a leg to stand on as a woman, so therefore I'm a strong person. So I had to, and I grew up here, so I kind of know how to continue with my life. But if this isn't where I'm from, and I'm not able to have friends around me or know where I'm going to be going as a woman after that, I can just go back into that situation and maybe end up dead.
Well, this is what we say. You see what you just said? They have agendas for men, they have agendas for women, and they have agendas for our children. All right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
what is the agenda?
The agenda is to what shall I say? Okay, let me say clearly, like straight.
This is great.
All right. The agenda has been going on for many centuries, you know, but it has been, let's say, intensified now, you know, in a sense. The agenda, basically, okay, I am from the Congo, right, Kinshasa, the heart of Africa, which is the richest country in the whole world in terms of mineral resources by far in the world. And so my country has been in captivity for many centuries now, and it still is in captivity by the Americans, by the British, by the French, by the Belgian, by so many, like all the so-called elite countries, right? And so my country, if that's the truth I'm telling you now, if my country is free, truly free, Africa is free, and the whole world is free. Okay? But okay, let's go back to what we say here. Sorry, excuse me.
No.
Let's go back to what we say here. What we saying is this. What we saying is this. What we say is that this agenda of, let's say, against us, the reason why we are at the bottom is because Africa is the richest continent in the whole world, by far, in terms of natural resources. It's the motherland, the origin, the birthplace of all humanity. All right, that's another thing. And also, I mean, we are the children of the sun. We, as the black people, the melanated, so-called carbonite, you know, people. All right. So that agenda has been going on for that reason. And so, and those laws, those legal system, political, whatever system, is being put specifically, not at all, for our benefit, not at all, but to the contrary, to dismantle us.
Yeah, I mean,
and also the education system to miseducate us. All right, all those degrees and masters and PhDs. I mean, I'm very sorry. It's very Eurocentric. I am self-taught. Now I'm going to do masters and all this nonsense. I call them nonsense. Mainstream Eurocentric qualifications. All right, this is not beneficial at all for any true African people, especially the motherland. All right, so let's keep it real like that as brothers and sisters. We have to keep it real like that because it is our survival, it is our life, and we have to protect ourselves so that we can protect ourselves.
If I understand you now, you figured out the problem.
Sorry?
If I understand you, you figured out the problem.
I figure out the problem. It's the system.
So what happens when you figure out the problem?
All right, this is what I'm saying. As a family
what
now.
What do you do when you figure out the
problem? All right, as brothers and sisters, we need to reason like this and come to a language, one language, because originally we always used to speak one language, all right? The same language, whether it's male or female, and we have been, raised male, female in a way, in a male way, in a female way, so that we become mature and we still speak one language. So our true roots and culture, should always direct us, guide us to speak the same language, one language, meaning be in accordance, in agreement.
That's the solution.
I mean, being, let's say, the solution is those reasoning, but it's also understanding. Reasoning, understanding. When you reason, you're mindful, you're thoughtful, you understand, you got knowledge, and then you agree. Because truth, real truth, is hard to deny. It's hard to deny. Unless you are somebody, I don't know. But real reasoning, real truth is very hard to deny. And this is why the more we're going to speak, hopefully, the more we should be speaking the same language.
Yeah, so that's the solution.
The solution is this. The solution is this. This is the start. This is the start of the solution.
Okay.
All right. This is the beginning of the solution.
Okay. We are all on domestic violence, isn't it?
Right.
There is a notion that goes on. Maybe you have heard. Maybe the media. They said that they are trying to emasculate the black man by not giving the black man job, rather give it to the black woman. You've heard that. Okay. And when things happen like that, you think of solution. Some of the reasons, some of the domestic violence that happen is aggression of the position of the black man that takes it on the black woman. Sometimes with domestic violence, because a man that does nothing is aggressive and all that. But to me, that should not be the solution. That should not be the first avenue for the black man. You should, okay, they didn't give you that job, but they gave it to the young woman, the black woman. Is it not a way, because somebody created that job, is it not a way to work with your black woman and you think, okay, what do I do on my own while the black woman is working? And you work together as a team instead of aggression, because instead of looking at it, because I see some couples that there is competition within them, instead of working together, but there's so much competition.
I would say that it is more, let's say, individuals rather than the whole community.
It's not the whole, I said some.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from. But again, words are powerful, language, very powerful. All right, we're talking about domestic violence. What is domestic violence? We have to, these are case studies, these are very powerful case studies. What is domestic violence? Is domestic violence just physical?
It's not just physical.
All right. So there are many aspects. Jobs-wise, male, female, we are all, like you can get a job. Male, female can get the job. There are loads of jobs. You can create your own job. That's not an issue, having jobs. But what we're talking about here, it's more, my suggestion would be us to focus on studying their laws, understanding fully, deeply, because we may think we understand. I don't think we really understand their laws.
But how does that
how unlawful they are. Because the more we study their laws and then also give examples of our life experiences, the more we'll actually see clearer how deep the political, capitalist, imperialist, racist system really is. The more we study their laws and understand the wrong, the inequality of their laws.
But then what happened, what I can't understand in that way, I understand and I accept all the things that you're saying to be true in regards to the capitalism and, colonialism and all this type of stuff and, but that doesn't help inside of the house when you're in a situation, in an immediacy.
In an emergency?
In an immediate situation.
In an emergency?
Well, no, not an emergency, just a situation that you're living day to day within your home.
Okay, this one I'm
discussing the anger.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. How does that, the law, if you never brought it outside for any help yet, how is it that you're able to combat that? That has nothing to do with law just yet.
Okay.
How do I walk
peace?
How do I find peace?
Yes.
No, okay.
How do I discuss with my partner? And if you felt that within the household that the partners should be able to speak to one another, or as you were saying, people should be able to work as a team. Now, it still comes back down to how you've grown and what your belief system, because sometimes people in cultural and belief systems as well, because a lot of the stuff when you are in a religious belief system, they believe that the man has a certain place and the woman. And this is what they were saying about the emasculation of the black man or the man in regards to I guess a belief system of any type of religion and cultural one, is that they're bringing the man away from being the head of the family. A lot of competitiveness comes from jobs. Anyone can get jobs, but if you are a highly educated woman, or even if you're not, but you've got a job that is paying more than your husband, it may not be, it may be in your cultural background or your thought process or tradition that is unequal, and the person then can feel out of, out of depth. Which is on him or her. But the thing about it is, there are a lot of, sorry, it's just my alarm. Yeah, there are a lot of people that feel that they are not worth as much if they're not the breadwinner. And also the woman, all this kind of,
because they have a sense of control, that's why you are.
Yes, of course, but hold on a minute. Feminism, is a thing that rears its head all the time.
There is emasculation, there is effemination.
Yeah, so it rears its head.
And in the children's
you can be a feminist to a point where you dislike men, but you could be maybe a feminist to a point that you believe in women's rights. There's a difference. There's a big difference. But there are some people that push the agenda, like the Black Lives Matter, and they don't like men.
Okay.
Yeah. So one second. My point right here when I was listening is that the immediate action, if you're in a household with somebody and you are being abused by that person because they are feeling emasculated, they're feeling that they are not, the person that brings home the, yes, they don't have that control over it. When sometimes people that are from these types of cultural or traditional backgrounds come into an environment of a Western society, then they become more on an even, they can become more on an even footing within the, what would you call it, the domestic setup that is for a man and a woman to create a union. And so, sorry, one second. My point is so when they become like that, it's not a bad thing, because everybody is reaping what comes into your household. But when you have grown in a certain environment and you like I said, belief system, you may think that now this is, I feel threatened because now this person is getting a bit too above their station or big for their boots, or I feel like I am not in control of my family, or I'm not bringing up, and that is on that person.
Just because they don't have,
there are
some ways you could
talk.
What do they say? Contribute to the family even without money.
Yes.
But because you are the child that believes when you have money, you want to control people because you have the money. So when you don't have it, you feel less of
or the roles are changed.
Yeah.
So the roles are changed. So you may feel like you've come into this environment, your wife is supposed to do X, Y, and Z. She is not doing that now. Although she's still bringing her good money, we're living nicely. But now I don't feel like I'm the man that should. And I'm of that mindset. I like to be in a relationship where I feel that the man is still in the role where I feel he's contributing what he as a man, and not demasculating him or emasculating him. But the thing is, it's very difficult to keep that out. But if you're in a relationship, a person is okay with that, or they're trying to evolve and better themselves, and they're not trying to beat you over the head with whatever has happened to them. That's when the balance tips.
I mean, for me, we have two different subjects here. We're kind of confusing ourselves. One is domestic violence experiences of couples,
It's one and the same.
It's the same because we're trying to see the reason why.
We're only talking about the domestic violence thing. We're talking about the reason why it happens.
Okay. What I'm saying is this. What I hear, what you're explaining, it's more experiences of couples and, ethnicity. This is very, very difficult to kind of put in.
This happens in every culture.
Hold on, please. Let me try to explain what I'm trying to explain here. Because, like I said, we have two subjects here. I want to stick on the law. I think it's very crucial. But let's talk on the domestic violence and experiences. What you say is very difficult to bring everybody on the same board, on the same point. Why? Because different cultures, just individuals, we are different. We can have the same culture, but we are different. A man, I can get on very well with you, but maybe you may not get on well with that person because we are different. Hold on. It's not as simple as that, I know. But if you look at couples, there are some couples that are very happy doing their lives. One is maybe a millionaire, the other is stay at home, and they're fine. That's their lives. They do whatever they want. They love each other. They do whatever they want. Some of them, they like going in the street, partying. They like doing their thing. They still love each other. They're fine. Some of them, they're different. They're just different.
And they might still love each other.
And it's about their agreement, the way they agree to leave each other. All right. Sometimes they argue. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they do this. Sometimes. Couples are different. If you go that way, that road, it's nothing to do with religion, it's nothing to do with color, it's nothing to do with, it's just couples, relationship, life, it's not easy, people get on, some people don't, some people get physical, some people don't, some people get spiritual, some people go stuck up, into their religion, some people don't, some people, this is just, but this is not what I'm talking about. This is very, very type of various experiences of domestic violence. That's endless where we go in that way. It's very endless. You have so many different experiences, like very, very different. And very, very very unknown, new and this and that. It's just very different. And that's not where we should be going to, because it's endless. We will not stop. You always have new people, a new couple coming with their experiences, and it's not going to stop, and we're not going to resolve anything. So it's not the approach we should have. Let's focus on the law, on the legal system. Let's focus on understanding it. All right? Let's focus, because that's going to bring us together. That's going to bring us to reason, to see.
But you realize if we're doing a research, they want to know the basic.
Well, those basic, this is what I'm saying.
They want to know the basic, the people.
I like to keep things real. I like to keep things real.
Did you say you're going to be studying law when?
I like to keep things real. I like to study. I'm very curious. I study very thing. Yeah, hopefully, but that's me. That's the personal thing. Okay. No problem. So what we're saying is this. Okay, what is it I'm saying here? Okay.
About the law.
About the law. Okay. So what's gonna bring us together? Is like I say, is study, critical study.
Can I come in there?
Study, research.
Yeah.
Study, research, indefinitely, very indefinitely. It's very crucial to stay independent, just like this, but proper reasoning, and then because if we study our experiences, we'll have loads of experiences, endless of experiences. It's good to study them. I'm not saying it's wrong, but we should not. Our focus should be on the law, on what is, what does not work for us all as a people.
I don't think that's the focus for this research, basically.
Sorry?
I don't think it's the focus for this research.
Okay, the focus on this research is what? Is it what's the focus of this research? This is what I'm saying. Okay. All right. The focus is domestic violence. Domestic violence. This is what I'm saying. Domestic violence. People interpret it their own way. Two, they understand it their own way. Even like when they read the same thing, you will see two different people understanding it, interpreting it differently. And it's the same law. But here, what I'm saying here is that the law itself is not right. It's very unlawful and it's very discriminative. It's very violent, as a matter of fact. It's not even physically violent, but it's very, very violent. You know, so violent, psychologically speaking and morally speaking, at least, the very least. You know, and so that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying we should focus on, and understanding that deeply, the way I see it, at least, that's the little I see. Then we'll start, at least, you know, go deeper into. Then, you know, understanding what we should be applying, what we should be doing as a people, let alone as individuals. Because as a people, will individually, naturally, you'll be part of it, naturally, as a people. Let's stick as a people to reason and understand things as a people. Most importantly, economics. The word economics, people think it's just money, you know, about economics. It's just money. But economics is everything, is every single thing. Everything touches economics. Environment, politics, you name it. Everything is economics. Every single thing. But to stick to domestic violence, let's precise properly domestic violence on lawful laws or in unequal laws, you know, and very, you know, racist laws.
Can you mention one of the domestic violence laws that is unequal, that is unlawful?
We should read.
Because you must have read the content.
Yeah.
What falls under domestic violence?
Okay.
The laws. You know, maybe section D is on the domestic violence law. Which part of it that you find unlawful? Is there the one?
I mean, everything, the whole lot. I mean, I think we should read it. We should have it here. You know, when we do research like this, we should have.
So have you read the content?
Yeah, I've read it, but so you know, I haven't read it in my mind. I haven't read it in my mind, but I just know they're not right. Example: domestic violence. Let's say, you know, example: financial abuse. Example: financial abuse.
So that's one of the wrong.
Okay, what is financial abuse? I mean, we need. This is how I'm saying.
So, okay, define financial abuse. What of the
That's what I'm saying.
One of the examples, the content. One of the
what does the law? This is what I'm saying. We should not, you know, study our opinions. We should study what the law says.
Lift one of the laws of financial violence. I mean, that financial violence aspect. Lift one of the examples.
Of financial abuse.
Sorry?
What's financial abuse?
It's one of the examples of financial abuse in the law.
What is financial abuse? Because, you know, the law is...
Because for you to come, you say it's one of the unlawful ones. It's wrong.
Okay.
Give me an example of, well, you know, the actions that stands under financial abuse.
Okay, I don't know. Financial abuse may be something like, okay, I don't know.
It's not defining it, the example.
An example?
Within that law, under that section.
I like to read things, you know. Let's read the law and let me explain it to you, you know, rather than me giving you an example. Because there's some
for you to lift up something and say, this thing is wrong, you must have...
Yeah, because it doesn't make sense. This is what I'm saying, because it doesn't make sense.
Okay, one of it, you know, for example, under financial abuse, one of it is, I'm not going to say man or woman, within the spouse, one is working, one knows that the bills have to be paid. Because he is working or she is working, she has to bring it up for the one that manages the home. Because within this country, if you are a couple now, regardless of man and woman, the one that's not working is the manager of the home. So he makes sure that bills are paid inside, you know, because the other one is working, but that one has to provide the money. When it has to be a struggle, this is what is under the law, you know? When it has to be a struggle, because I actually studied the family law and all that, you know? When it has to be a struggle to bring out that money, you are financially abusing the other one because that one lives agitated. When is my next bill going to come from? And just like that causes a lot of illnesses. You'll be surprised, stroke, cancer, high blood pressure, everything. That is a financial abuse. So I don't know where that comes under unlawfulness, but that's one.
Okay.
That's one of the things. Yeah. When the other spouse, these are things when you go and read it now, when the other spouse has to decide how the other one's hair do, your hairstyle, have to decide what you wear. All those things are abuse. It's under domestic violence within the marriage.
Well, this is what I'm saying.
So I don't see anything unlawful there.
Well, this is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying. For example, now I'll give you an example. The unlawful side is this. Okay, let's say I'll give you my experience. For example, my experience is that I was living with a woman. We had a child together. She was not paying nothing at all. All right, and I was paying everything. And I
happily or grudgingly?
Sorry.
Happily or grudgingly?
Oh no, grudgingly.
So grudgingly you are paying. You are using her. That's why I ask you are paying. A man comes out and says, I'm paying everything. How are you paying everything? Grudgingly or happily?
Let me explain so you understand the financial abuse on her part.
On her part. Okay. You are paying happily.
Hold on. I'm not saying I was paying happily. What I'm saying is this. Listen to me, please. Listen to me to the end. Okay. She's not paying anything. Okay? Behind, she does her own thing, with her own money, without me knowing. Okay? But that's when we were together, that's not even an issue. Okay? That's not even an issue. We were together. That's not even an issue. But what I'm saying, the financial, what does not make sense in the financial abuse, because I just gave an example, is that, okay, now she's single mother, she has a child, they gave her, she's, declared the child autistic, they gave her, everything, and blah, blah, blah. She spoiled the child, I don't know how, and then deprived the father to see the child, and deprived the child to see the father.
That's not right.
Can I just say, you haven't explained what she was asking you. Always when I find, I don't know if you find this as well, and this is not a diss to you, but I find I ask a question and people don't answer the question, right? The question is, how do you understand financial abuse in a relationship? Because we're here to talk about domestic violence, and as you said, and I rightly agree with you, there are levels, right? So if in your situation you started to give an example that you were paying all the money, you haven't given any background as to what she was also doing, not only financially, because in a relationship, if somebody is paying for everything and another person is doing something else in a relationship, therefore the person that is paying for stuff should not feel that they are being abused by a person not paying it, unless that person is taking them for a ride. And I understand that, but if a person is sat at home looking after your kid while you are going out to do a job, there's no financial abuse there. But you didn't give any background on what you omitted to say anything that she was doing apart from what you were doing.
Listen, I'm sorry, this is not what I'm trying to say. I don't even know why I showed financial thing, but it's not the example I want to give.
Oh, okay.
That's not the thing. I think what I'm trying to say why financial abuse, it's more about, let's say, more about the separate. When I see financial abuse, more about the separation side. When it's like, for example, okay, she has the house, she's been given the house, everything, and she has the child. That she's spoiled, she's spoiled with everything, but then the man, because he's separated, has to do his own thing, has to give to the child, but yet she's abusing the child and the relationship.
Can I come in here soon?
Let me take this off you. This is not financial abuse. I can say this to you. This is not financial abuse. Okay, Yannick, I'm typing.
So on that specific point that the pitch is talking about, and in relation to financial abuse, it does exist in terms of the work I do and what I've seen. But I've seen it in twofold. So I've seen it in my SEN work, but I also seen it as a stockbroker, where you have to evaluate the man's disposable income to know whether or not he can afford for his kids to go to school, whether or not you can make this investment depending on its risk profile. And in those scenarios, you also have to take into account wife, partner, whoever it is. And quite often, if you look at after expenditure, the disposable income, he actually has less disposable income than she does. That's the net effect. And so when you're addressing financial abuse, the law doesn't actually account for that and doesn't actually pick that up.
Yeah, because the way people see the law here, you think
Hold on.
For me, and I think I've heard you talk about the law on one hand, Pichu, and I guess Deborah, you've talked about the experience with Tatiana. I kind of want to step away from that altogether. I want to come at this from children, young people, when working with them. I had a conversation with a young person a few days ago. They are in their 40s now. It's a man, lives alone, never been involved in all of this, has I would say, a normal relationship with women. He's never been married, so there's no domestic violence background in terms of financial abuse and all of that. But at the same time, when you speak with him and you listen to the relationship when the father wasn't there, and the upbringing and the engagement with the law quite early on, there was a culture that was brought in there. By the time he's now a boyfriend, a partner, an employee, these things have been part of the lifetime for a while. So again, when you talk about language, and I'm just thinking starting point, because if you want to start with the law is always changing, and so what is right, what is wrong? And specifically to domestic violence, it shifts, hence part of the research we're doing, because they're looking at it again and thinking, well, what is right, what is wrong under X, Y, and Z circumstances. So there is an undertaking that the law carries, which I think Pichu was trying to relate to with regards to what is right, inherently coming from above God, and what is wrong. And if we start from a position of, let me use the word here, racial trauma, genetic trauma, you then start to build a different picture as to what is right and what is wrong, as to how we arrive today, and whatever the situation is, however it's unfolding. And I think that's what I was taking away from some of what you were trying to say.
I mean, for me, I need to read the law, but if I give my experiences then,
I think, to kind of hone in on the focus of today though, and the research, I think a lot of this is useful and it's to come in terms of learning from here to see how this conversation will play out later on. But today is a little bit more tailored. I think this conversation has become quite broad in terms of, okay, with what we've discussed so far, how do we then do an online engagement with the 10 questions? How do we then do a workshop with the 25 questions? What sorts of targets should we set in and around that? And I think, again, in terms of the music that I was speaking to you about, one of the things we've talked about is a lot of this is quite heavy. How do we lighten these conversations? So when we're having them outside of this forum, it carries that feel and it takes into account, I guess, the sensitivity of what we're discussing. Because I think we're going to encounter this. It's a highly sensitive subject. And so it's going to be quite a job keeping this on track.
Okay, give me an example.
So, just to fit it, so we need two things out of today. Music, which is why my brother, Bubba, is here, and Tatiana, and as well as yourself, because you are all artists.
I'm a versatile artist.
Exactly. I think myself and Deborah are the non-artists in the room. And so, it's really for you guys to think around some of what we've actually discussed here just now, and how we felt about that, and utilize that and say, well, how do we literally have this conversation in terms of, okay, we're going to do online, should we have music or should it be silent? If I'm sending an email shot, do I position people towards a video as well? Because why would you fill in a survey regarding this that takes you down to this environment which is sensitive? It's not an easy task.
Okay, financially.
So how are we doing the survey? So if we can, I guess, continue the conversation,
but I don't
stay focused even around that section.
I think this is what I'm saying. I think what's important here, that was just an example, but I think we will go back to it. But I think the main thing, to be able to do this effectively, we need to have the laws in front of us and read it, so that we can explain and reason properly and understand how unlawful they are. You see? So to give my example, is like, for example, like I said, I was working, she was not working, she was earning the money and then doing her thing on the side. And then when we separated, I didn't have papers back then, nothing.
Can I make a suggestion? Sorry, Peter. I think case examples may be something useful to explore, because it takes the conversation away from the individual and personal.
But I think it's very crucial to really read those laws, so that, when I give this example, I can relate to the law itself, and then it will make sense, you will understand it.
Yes.
But the most crucial thing is to study the law and relate it to our experiences, domestic violence, but even comparing it with the laws, so that you see, is it right or wrong?
If you want to do that, I just want you to, for me, if you want to do that on your own, that is good, even for you to be, because I see a lot of people come here and say the law is on the side of the woman. And that's a sign of ignorance, because you've not read the law. Because the law is meant to be fair, especially when it comes to...
It's not fair. The law is not fair.
The enactment of the law might not be fair.
Sorry, what's that?
The enactment of the law might not be fair. But the law is written based on fairness. Let me tell you why I say this. You go to court, the jury decides that you are guilty. And it's stipulated that, let me just use an example of, what's it called, what's this thing about blackmail? The issue of blackmail is between a year to 10 years. You know that? You can look at it as a small thing, because people easily blackmail people. Okay, the person is brave enough to take it to court. That is where the unfairness might come. The judge might decide and look at you and tell you, okay, you are going to the maximum. That's where the unfairness comes in law.
The application.
And look at you. You have your future ahead of you. The judge likes you. He might say you can't do community service. But he looks at you and says 10 years. That's where the unfairness comes. But when laws are sat down to be written, not bylaws, actual laws, it's written on fairness, based on fairness. Now, in terms of the law, it is good, and I wish most men can do it, and go and read what the law says about domestic violence. Or when there is separation, you will find that...
That is a massive undertaking, though, Deborah, that it's written by the individuals based on fairness.
I know it's written on individuals, I like that word.
Individuals.
Not just a judge sitting down. Let me finish, please. Not just a judge sitting down. Individuals. And those individuals bring up their ideas. And there are sections they call judicial review. People who will say, this law is...
But a lot of these individuals are racist, they're misogynistic, they're all of these things, so...
No, it's based on research. I told you, on research, collective research and statistics, on things that are happening. That's why they keep adding things to the law, adding things. When the domestic violence issue was written, some of these things added now, we are not there.
But surely now we're talking about the problems with...
Find out that
it's not right.
It's not on the side of the women or men. But there are things that are considered when this law is written that none of us want to think about, but people who write the law think about the children. The children.
At the priority.
As a priority. Let me finish. And that is why it's judged that way. Okay, look at this lady's divorce. So what's this name? This Miss, what's her name again? I forgot it. She was on Catfish. The children were given to the man, and she's paying benefit to those men now. Because it's based on who has the children and who makes more money. It's not about a woman or a man.
The question is...
Why the children were given to the man? Because he had more money?
No, the woman has more money. She's paying the benefit to the man. What's the name of this woman? She was the woman in Catfish.
I'm not sure.
She's, is it Halle Berry? Yeah, is it Halle Berry?
Halle Berry.
Yeah.
Halle Berry, yeah.
So the children now are given to that mansion because maybe he seems to have more time. I don't know how it worked out, but he makes
Okay, so that's I don't know. We should find the reason why, though.
Yeah, because he seems maybe he has more time because he has less money. He's just a man.
Okay, so why?
So he has the children and she's paying benefits. So why do you think it's against the men more is because more percentage of the men maybe makes more money. But the women that make less money, that their children are taking from them, nobody is seeing it. The women that makes more money.
That's not those statistics. Statistically, I can challenge.
That's what matters.
When you're when we're looking at racialized communities, right, and you then factor in poverty, and you start to look at, well, what does poverty actually mean? And it doesn't matter now, male or female, in racialized community, most of these people are on benefits. So what does disposable income really mean? And what does that convert into? How many hours per day are you working? What does that? I'm talking about real life case scenarios as to how this applies. You start to see that, as Pichu was trying to say, each case by case is so complex.
And they did it by that, because I can't sit down here. It's good you see that you think the law is wrong, but I want you to go and read that law.
That is true, you have to...
If I find it, I'll send it to you.
Let's study together. Because the roots of it, the root cause of it is imperialist, is capitalist, is racist, you know, and I can show it when I read it and we explain it. I can show that.
It's systemic. Whoa!